This is the marker where Lieutenant Charles Hazelett was felled there, pretty sure, by a Confederate bullet that was fired by a sharpshooter from Devil's Den. And as you can see in the distance, it had to be a pretty darn good shot to hit from there, especially when all you had were sights. I don't think there were too many telescopic scopes around it back then, and I know soldiers didn't carry them, so you had to be a heck of a shot to be able to line up somebody here. The interesting thing, and it's not marked here, is supposedly Brigadier General Stephen Weed was shot at least close to this spot. And when he fell, he was probably shot by a Confederate sharpshooter as well. There was nowhere else up here where a Confederate bullet could have came from, although there were certainly stray bullets flying around all over the place out here. But anyway, Weed apparently fell here, and Hazelett came to take final orders from him, seeing that his wound was serious enough that he would have to be carried from the field. And apparently the sharpshooter said, "Hey, I can get 2 for 1," and dropped Hazelett on the spot. But they believe that is exactly what happened, and nobody knows exactly for sure, but that's the story. Hazelett was killed instantly. Weed was wounded severely, actually mortally, and taken to the Jacob Weichert farm, which is just on the other side of the wood line here, just on the backside, a little round top. That is where Tilly Pierce, 15-year-old Tilly Pierce of Gettysburg, would spend a week away from her family in the town as the battle raged, and the Jacob Weichert farm would become a field hospital, treating at least, they're sure, 700 or so men during that week. If you ever get a chance to read her book, I think you can get it for free online. Actually, it is a beautiful read if you're interested in the human side of Gettysburg, the battle. It's very touching to read. It was very transformational for me to read it before I came up here last year for the first time. Weed, interestingly in the book, she would actually meet and sit with General Weed as he lay severely wounded and talk with him on the night of the 2nd of July. And apparently he was very enamored with her youth. I'm not talking about romantically, but apparently something about her was very comforting and charming, because he requested that she promised to come back and see him the next morning, and she said that she would. And as she walked out the door, she turned to look at the general one more time, and he said, "Now remember your promise." And she said, "I will." And she went up, awoke the next day, came down and found out that Weed had passed away from his injury from the night. So it was a rather touching, emotional moment for, I'm sure, but it's an excellent read. There is also an accounting in the book which is amazing. She was actually brought up here about, I believe it was on the 5th of July, 2 days after the battle. The Union dead had been removed from the field pretty much at that point, but the Confederates had not, and she was kind of buddy-buddy with one of the Weichert's daughters. Becky was the one closest to her age, who had apparently met a Union soldier, and they had become sweet on each other within a week, and she would eventually marry this man. But they decided to take a walk to up here, and somewhere up in this general area, he had a pair of binoculars and handed them to Tilly, and as she as she observed the valley of death below, she described what a mangled mess everything was, with everything destroyed, bodies laying everywhere, and one can only imagine what she saw as she peered down into this scene, looking at the wheat field being strewn with bodies laying all across the triangular field, Devil's Den by the hundreds and even thousands when you add it all up. Many men were shot in the Valley of Death, which is this area between here and Devil's Den. It was considered a no man's land for any soldier to be out there. You were right in the crossfire both armies. Um, that is the famous Plum Run. It runs very narrowly through there, and it's basically not much more than a trickle during the non-rainy season. Apparently there were enough bodies lying there bleeding that the water turned red for, they say, several hours on the day of the 2nd. So this was a bloody nightmare.